কেমন আছে এখন? হুম? হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, না ফোন করে, হ্যাঁ হ্যালো। সেই জন্য এখন আজকে কি পেটে লাগছে? খেতেই না না, সে ঠিক আছে, সেটা কি খাবে, সেটা তো ইভিনিংটা তাতেও পেটে লাগছে। ডাক্তার যে ওষুধগুলো দিয়েছে সেগুলো
হ্যাঁ,
খেয়ে
এবার
নিন।
শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, এবার শোনা যাচ্ছে সুন্দর।
হ্যাঁ, আসলে এটা আমি ব্যবহার করিনি কখনো, গুগল মিটটা। আমরা জেনারেলি জুম অথবা মাইক্রোসফট টিমস এই
হ্যাঁ,
দুটো ব্যবহার করি। হ্যাঁ, তো
আমিও
বাই
বুঝতে।
চান্স, হ্যাঁ বাই চান্স যদি আমার নেটটা অসুবিধে করে, আমি আমার
হ্যাঁ,
ভিডিওটা একটু সুইচ অফ করে দেবো, ঠিক আছে?
আচ্ছা
তাহলেই আবার ওটা ব্যাক অন ট্র্যাক চলে আসবে।
আচ্ছা
হ্যাঁ,
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। হ্যাঁ,
Welcome, sir. Welcome,
হ্যাঁ,
Professor Arunodai Mojumdar, sir.
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম,
Welcome.
থ্যাংক ইউ। হাউ আর ইউ ম্যাম?
Thank. Yes, I am fine, sir.
হ্যাঁ,
We are waiting for your lecture. We are waiting.
yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
am more or less prepared.
and I'm excited.
Have you any PPT, sir?
No ma'am, I don't have a PPT.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Just wait for few times because some of the participants
sure,
are trying
no
to
problem.
trying to join. Okay.
No problem,
Okay.
madam.
কালকে তাহলে আমি এখান থেকে দশটায় চলে যাবো নাকি? বারোটা থেকে যাবো। ঠিক আছে, সামনে চলে যাবো। ও যাচ্ছে, বাবা চলে যাচ্ছে। ঠিক আছে, রাখছি। হ্যাঁ কাজগুলো করছি না, দুটো একসঙ্গে চলছে আর কি। খেলাম, এই খেয়ে নিলাম, পেটে লাগলে শুয়ে পড়ে। খাওয়ার পর থেকেই লাগছে আরম্ভ করে, তাই তো? দাঁড়ান তো, খাওয়ার পর।
অরুণোদয়, তোমার লেকচারের টাইটেল কি?
হ্যাঁ বল।
টাইটেল কি তোমার
কি
লেকচারের? তোমার লেকচারটার টাইটেল কি হবে?
ঠিক আছে।
টাইটেল? COVID-19 explorations in ontology, methodology and epistemology,
দারুণ।
বা methodology, ontology and epistemology.
আচ্ছা,
সাম
বাবা।
থটস বলাটাই বেটার আমার মনে হয়।
আচ্ছা,
হ্যাঁ, তো
হ্যাঁ ওই
COVID-19, হ্যাঁ, সাম থটস অন ontology, methodology and epistemology.
বলছি, এটা লাইভ হচ্ছে স্যার, কি বলাটা ঠিক হবে, কিভাবে এগুলো বলতে পারবেন তো বলছি। হুম? সবাই দেখছে তো এগুলো। না না, কোনো স্ক্রিপ্ট করে না নাকি, প্রোগ্রাম বসে একটু বসে যায় নাকি? প্রেজেন্টেশন সেশন এইসব লেখালেখি ছিল বাবা এইসব দেখছে না সবাই।
তোমার এই ছবিটাই অনলাইন পাওয়া গিয়েছে।
আপনি ওনাদের নাম্বারটা
কোনটা?
বলে দিন
এই যে যেটা
ও এটা তো নামটা তো একেবারে নামের বানানটা অন্তত ঠিক কর, DAY
আচ্ছা
আর JUMDER।
ওই যে বানান ভুল হয়েছে সেটাও এখানে বলে দিচ্ছে, এটা তো বাজে ইমপ্রেশন না।
জে জেড নয়।
তোমার আরেকটা ছবি দেখলাম গুগলে আছে, সেটা ব্ল্যাক এন্ড হোয়াইট, সেটা
ও ঠিক আছে, অসুবিধা নেই।
ঠিক আছে, এটাই একটা বেশ অন্যরকম।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, একটা যা কিছু দিলেই হলো, চেনা গেলেই হলো আমার মনে হয়।
হ্যাঁ চেনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, ওটার অর্ডারটাকে না মেথোডোলজি, অন্টোলজি, এপিস্টেমোলজি রাখ, ঠিক আছে?
মেথোডোলজি, অন্টোলজি, এপিস্টেমোলজি।
হ্যাঁ
মেথোডোলজিতে শুরু দিয়ে অন্টোলজি দিয়ে এপিস্টেমোলজি।
হ্যাঁ, এপিস্টেমোলজিটা দিয়ে মানে এপিস্টেমোলজি অব্দি পৌঁছতে পারবো বলে মনে হয় না, বাট ওই জন্য ওটা লাস্টে রাখার কথা বলছি।
না না, এপিস্টেমোলজিটাতেই তো ইন্টারেস্টেড।
না,
অন্টোলজিটা, হ্যাঁ অন্টোলজিটা,
অন্টোলজিটাই মেন।
অন্টোলজিটা হ্যাঁ,
যত কনফিউশন জিনিসটা কি।
অন্টোলজিটা লং টার্ম।
বলছি please send your title in our mail or in WhatsApp group, sir.
Yes, you mean the title of the paper, ma'am? Presentation?
Your presentation.
Yeah, I'm sending it. I'm sending it to me.
হ্যালো,
So,
আপনাদের একটা লাইভ হচ্ছে, লাইভে এরকম বানান স্পেলিং ভুল এগুলো বলবেন না, সবাই দেখছে না ইউটিউবে। একটু একটু রিসেন্টলি এটা করুন, তাহলে বিচ্ছিরি ব্যাপারটা হয়ে যাচ্ছে না।
please announce that we are starting soon.
Okay. So we'll be starting soon. Sorry for this delay. There was a delay earlier in the last session, so we are continuing with the delay. So it's the ripple effect of that delay. We'll be starting soon. I apologize to our speaker, Professor Urunoday Majumdar, for this. But these are the times we have to coordinate digitally all the timings. So
That is
it's a
fine.
practice of timings, I guess. So
That is fine. I think one advantage of COVID-19 is probably we have some extra time in our hands.
Yes,
rightly said,
yes.
rightly said.
It is.
Yes, and it is good time to think also.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you have provided me an opportunity to think. So I thank Professor Sen
Yes, sir.
very much, who is my senior. Thank you, Professor Sen, and I of course thank Professor Mir, who was my colleague in JNU. We were both students at the same time. I had great opportunity to have met him, and
Yes.
he's definitely one of the most fantastic, classmates that I have come across.
No.
We are fortunate enough, sir. We are fortunate enough to meet you in this
No, ma'am,
webinar.
it is my good fortune that I have, I have managed to, be a part of a seminar which is so well organized and so well thought by you. So thank you. I was very happy to receive your email, ma'am.
Okay, sir. It is. You are always welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
হ্যাঁ, আমরা যখন আবার সেমিনার হবে, যখন কলেজেই করব, তোমাকে ডাকবো, আসতে হবে।
নিশ্চয়ই। এখন কবে যে আসা যাওয়াটা হবে,
আসা যাওয়ার সমস্যা।
Now,
should I start, Mohaji?
yes. Me, please start.
Okay. So I'm starting. Okay. Okay, so thank you all for joining in the second session of our today national webinar on the socio-economic effects of COVID-19. So first, the great Russian poet Vladimir Mayakovsky once opined that there should be a seminar to put end to all the seminars. So clearly, Mayakovsky didn't have the opportunity to read Bakhtin, for whom life is a dialogue, and living is participating in that dialogue. So this two-day national level webinar on the impact of COVID-19 on the existing socio-economic environment by our college Birbhum Mahavidyalaya is an attempt on going on this living, or as they say, ke sira sira, whatever will be, will be. Italian cultural theorist Paul Virillo, sometimes I read this interview of his some time back, that every new speed creates new accidents. So maybe this unprecedented spread of COVID-19 in such a short span is one justification for his comment, I guess. But will this mean the de-escalation of globalized world order, or the other way around? Or there will be pre-First World War crisis, like Peter Zeihan wrote in one of his recent articles, that we have to see. But as Bertolt Brecht wrote, in the dark times will there be also be singing? Yes, there will also be singing about the dark times. Anyway, so with this, I will introduce our speaker, Professor Arunoday Majumdar from Narsi Munji Institute of Management Studies. So before that, before introducing him, I would like to share a personal opinion that in Indian epistemology there is a idea of Guru Shishya Parampara. So he may not, Arunoday Majumdar, he may not acknowledge this, but I consider him as a guru of sorts. And now he's laughing because he won't acknowledge this. Then will have to be the Ekalabba kind of Shishya, I guess. Anyway, so Professor Majumdar has lived a life of man of many hats. He has worked as a journalist. He has worked as a reporter in Times Now. He has been an editor of CNN News 18. He has also worked as a filmmaker for the channel National Geographic on their series Superstructure. So he had lived a double life before coming to serious academia, and now I'm a fan of his scholarship. So that's why when I got the opportunity to invite him, I couldn't resist, and I'm excited to hear from Professor Majumdar. So I request Professor Majumdar to start his presentation, which he insists on naming the methodology, the ontology, and epistemology of COVID-19, and in this particular order. Thank you. Over to Arunoday Majumdar.
Well, Mir, that was actually very generous and kind of you to, mention me in the manner in which you have mentioned me. I thank you for your generosity, but I still think that some of the very kind words that you have used, I do not know how far I deserve them. Having said that, I must express my extreme thankfulness and gratitude to Professor Mohua Sen, who got in touch with me and provided me with this opportunity, to exercise my mind with regard to something which everybody is thinking in to some extent or the other. Maybe the magnitude of our of the magnitude of how we have been affected by COVID-19 differs, but then at the same time it's almost undeniable that unless we are living in a society which is more or less out of touch with the globalized world, or which is more or less not restricted to, or which is more or less restricted to the serene and pristine offers of nature, I think nobody has been able to escape it. So having said that, so let me just rehash my title for this talk, and the title which I decided just about 5 minutes ago, because I had forgotten in fact to decide on a title. Although I obviously have prepared some bits of this extremely confusing situation that we are under. But the title that I have thought of is COVID-19 some thoughts on methodology, ontology, and epistemology. So, it's very important. I mean, I was listening to Professor Jana before this, and Professor Jana came across as an academic of great erudition in his field, which he spoke primarily on the economics, economics of the matter, or the economic impact of COVID-19, and I was struck by one particular word that he used, which was human experience. So, what is the human experience of COVID-19? Is something that has made me think, and I think my little submission, which I'm going to offer to you now, will revolve mostly around the human experience of this thing. And Mir started excellently with a quote from Mikhail Bakhtin, who says that about dialogue and or life being a dialogue, and you know participation or continuous participation in this dialogue. And I think I will I will advance my talk, or I will move towards my talk with this philosophy in mind, that it is something, or it is actually an endless dialogue uh, that we are going to take part in. Solutions to the COVID crisis, unfortunately, is beyond my expertise, and I think that there's no embarrassment to make such a submission, because the best minds of the world, who operate in a domain which is very different from that of mine, the natural sciences, or the material sciences, or particularly the corporeal sciences, they are putting their heads to this, and I think the solutions probably lies somewhere in a laboratory, or maybe in the laboratory that this brilliant human body is. We often forget that the human body itself is a laboratory. That's why a lot of people are looking forward to it, in terms of developing herd immunity. So, having said all of that, I just think that uh, I will briefly give an introduction to my academic background, and to the discipline in which I work. So I am primarily, a sociologist under training. So I am currently, enrolled for my PhD in JNU, and at the same time, I am lucky to be an assistant professor in the Law School of Narsimonji Institute of Management Studies in Bangalore. I did my master's and MPhil from the Delhi School of Economics, and I was lucky to have studied in West Bengal also, where I lived till I was 21. So I did my college from in sociology from Presidency College, Calcutta, and the discipline never stops, or the discipline never fails to actually interest me, in the sense that even today, some things that I'm going to talk about, goes back to the history of sociology itself, and how important that history is. So, in a way, let's just say that, unlike the difference between sociology and social anthropology in the United States of America, in India, sociology and social anthropology are actually looked together. I mean, they work primarily as a team. Okay, they work as one discipline, let's say, although under the broad rubric of sociology. There are departments of anthropology, of course, in Delhi University, where there is the biological anthropology as well as cultural anthropology. They go together. So you have anthropology departments where you have the natural sciences also, but in sociology it's more or less interdisciplinary, with greater focus or greater cohesiveness between, let's say, sociology and social anthropology. So this offers a unique chance, in the sense that uh, it does not only restrict, your work, or it does not only restrict your investigations, your academic investigations, to the domain of society. Okay, or to the domain of the collection of individuals which we are taught is society. But it brings the anthropos, that is the human, okay, into the domain of sociology as well. So the human is very important when we are studying society, or when we are studying through sociology, which basically means that the study of sociology must not be restricted and cannot be restricted to this collective, or these various dimensions, or these various volumes of collectives. Let's say I'm speaking in terms of numbers, which is called society. So there is a micro society, there are macro societies, micro societies, groups, associations, whatever. But the good thing about social anthropology is that it also studies the human, okay, as uh, it also studies the human as a part of society. So there is greater focus on this living being, which is the human, which can think, which can feel. And my talk is primarily going to be on this thinking and feeling individual, who is the human, and how they are interacting with this nearly unprecedented crisis in some of our lifetimes. But there have been, there have been many such crises in even the last 2 centuries, let's say. So before, in order to move ahead, I would simply ask you all to just imagine a triangle. Okay, a triangle which is not standing on any of its lines, which doesn't really have a base, but which is standing on one of its points, let's say. And these 3 points basically, that is the ABC of the triangle. They represent 3 concepts. One is methodology, one is ontology, and the third one is epistemology. And the reason I'm asking you to, put the triangle on a point, to imagine the triangle standing on a point, is because if we put it on a line, if we put it on a base, then there is, then there is an indication that the triangle is stable, okay, and that the relationship between methodology, ontology, and epistemology is a stable relationship. I do not wish to indicate that it's a stable relationship. I wish to indicate that it's a very unstable relationship. Okay, it can tip and fall at any point in time, only to rise again, on another tip, let's say. And I also do not wish to say that the 3 points, that is methodology, ontology, and epistemology, these 3 points, are not 3 distinct points. All right, those distinct points are basically analytical shorthands. Okay, it's something that you need to put, because otherwise representation of each of these concepts becomes impossible. So while we think of those 3 points representing 3 different things, that is, M, O, and E, that is methodology, ontology, and epistemology, I would also, encourage you to think that these 3 things are also present within the space, okay, that is perimetered by the triangle. So, having said that, I think that one of the biggest problems, okay, as an academic, that that you come across when you are talking about COVID-19, is that it has forced us to to rethink our methodology, because it has actually made the techniques or the methods that we use for scientific inquiries into society, okay, almost useless. So what are the scientific inquiries that we, or what are the scientific instruments that we use in order to access this society and the human beings who populate it? So and how has that how has that, let's say, tradition, or those conventional tools, how have they been almost made useless by the COVID crisis? So particularly in sociology and social anthropology, or at least the tradition in which I have been trained, okay, qualitative data is of primary importance. I mean, I have hardly come across some good work in the last few years, with the exception probably of Satish Deshpande, which takes data in sociology very seriously, and by data I mean quantitative statistical data. So in India particularly, we have been very, very focused on qualitative data. And qualitative data, again, when we are talking about qualitative data, it means that we are referring to ethnography, we are referring to field work, we are referring to case studies, we are referring to interviews. These are the four things that, these are the four things that, or these are the four techniques that we usually use in order to access our object of investigation. Now, clearly, field work is right now is very tentative. Even if you as an ardent academic, or even if you as an ardent student or researcher want to brave the airplane or the train or the bus or anything or any transport facility and access your field, okay, it is unlikely that your respondents will agree to provide you that sort of access, because they themselves, so it's a great leveler, because it is often that the student or the researcher has a great amount of power in terms of how he represents a particular set of people. But here it's a great leveler, because at least the respondents have equally have the right to deny access to this person who wants to study them. But that aside, so when field work is impossible, face-to-face interview, the way we used to do it, is also quite difficult. Of course, you can meet one another on screen, but there's a difference to that, because the art of interviewing, okay, and this is something that I learned as a journalist as well. The art of interviewing, it actually starts much before you actually sit down with a person and then ask him or her the relevant questions that you have in mind. In fact, the art of interviewing is a process which starts much before that and ends after that formal set of questions that you had in mind, because what you call is a rapport formation, or what you call is the building of a certain trust with your respondent, actually happens before you do the interview. And some of the most important data also is provided by the person you are interviewing after the interview is formally over. Okay, so he or she will say, by the way, I forgot to mention, and then there's something very important which might just come up. So that is closed when you are talking on screen, because on screen you have certain time limits, you have a time, you cannot say, okay, let's go for a walk, or what do you think about it, because the very architecture of an interview which is performed online and within the four lines of the computer, is a limitation. It indicates a limitation, which of course I am not saying that it's something that one can't break. I am not saying that at all. I am a very pro technology person, so I'm not saying at all that it cannot be transcended. But as of now, right now, after 6 months of this pandemic, it's fairly difficult. We haven't probably figured out, just a sec. We haven't probably figured out that how do we access this respondent who is out there in the field. I am not saying much about ethnography, because I have a suspicion that nowadays what used to be called ethnography has been turned into field work. Okay, so ethnography would literally require you to go and stay with a particular ethnic group, learn their way of life, if necessary, learn their language. But I don't think many people do it right now. I'm talking about my peer group. I'm talking about doctoral students, doctoral researchers. So, however, like Mir said, that every accident is a provision for new possibility. And I think that while we are in the midst of a crisis, and the crisis is good in terms of doing anthropology or in terms of doing sociology. And why I say that is because most of you may have noticed how in the past 10 years, that is when cheap electronic technology to record and represent, when they became available, there has been a change, okay, in which how the academics is performed, and there's something which has risen, and that is what is called visual anthropology or visual ethnography, which basically means that your tool of recording is not just the tape recorder. Your tool of recording is not just that field diary, which interestingly, which sometimes make very interesting readings. In fact, the first ethnographer in some ways, Bronislaw Malinowski's one of his hidden diaries was published as recently in the last decade, probably, or in the 1990s, which is raised quite a hue and cry. But nevertheless, um, so the tool of recording, this camera and this microphone, which has become very easily accessible to everybody, it has given rise to a visual anthropology, which was more or less restricted to people who could only, whose universities or whose colleges or whose educational institutions could only afford a camera. Okay, and the recording camera is it's fairly, a video camera is fairly expensive. Even today, it won't come for less than 30,000 rupees with, with a mic and a recording instrument with enough space with a tripod. It will take you definitely 30,000 rupees. But this phone camera now gives us a great opportunity to access the sociological or the social anthropological field. And I was attending a workshop some days back where a student said how she has been experimenting by tying a camera actually to the forehead of one of her respondents in a village, okay, and asking her then to move around in the village, by which she said that she could now actually maintain the 2 feet or 3 feet social distancing and at the same time communicate with her respondents on the field. Okay, so I think such things, such experiments actually manages to make the social sciences far more innovative, and rescues them from from moribund traditions, which change only when something changes in, like I say, in France. It's not even in America that something changes, because what usually happens, if you see the translation networks, I mean, if the last big man was a Derrida or a Deleuze who wrote in French, Gayatri Chakraborty's Spivak in the US would translate in English, and then it would be published in English. The translations would become or Europe. So I think technology is a great leveler, and I also think that it's high time that we also start thinking on our own and we start developing our own concepts. And I think COVID is a great time to do that. So even when we are talking about the camera as a tool or as a technology for doing research, it can become two ways. So just as you do an exploratory research, you can simply make the camera move, in your research field. Okay, not always like in the computer, not always having an appointment with something or someone. It is not necessarily, it doesn't require an appointment. Okay, in this sense, it is far more exploratory in nature. And on the other hand, you can also, of course, have the planned camera or the appointment based camera, where you want to go, and talk to perhaps the man who has lost his job and has returned to his village. You can do that. That would be a planned, incision into the social body, or you can also, move around the village, not talk to anyone, but generally see, generally record the forced leisure, okay, in times of COVID. That would be perhaps more of an exploratory one. Again, this is an analytical shorthand. I'm not saying that you can do this and not do that, or you can do that and not do this. I'm not saying this at all. Rather, I'm saying that these are the various possibilities that offer themselves. And it's very interesting that that's the word social incision came to my mind, because incision is a very surgical process. So if you think of your social field, or if you think of society as a biological entity, or as a body, let's say, as a corporeal entity, then a planned intervention would, or the camera would, as a tool, would also almost be, you know um, you know um, uh, a surgical blade fitted with a camera that happens nowadays in hospitals. Okay, that explores your body for certain signs of malignancy, let's say, or it could have a nice knife attached to it if it wants to conduct a surgery. And this is precisely how, in fact, if you recall, that August Comte, who is largely considered as the father of sociology, this is exactly how he thought of society as a biological organism. So, yes, having said that, I mean, I spoke quite a bit on the problem of qualitative methods, what how COVID-19 does not allow us or how COVID-19 has made a break with tools and technologies, that or techniques that we are used to in order to conduct our research. At the same time, it gives us a great experimental opportunity to use the camera in a certain way, which not only fetches information that you need, but it can also lead to something that you are not used to, and it can also lead to something which is food for further research. As I said, quantitative data is not something that I'm very proficient with. I don't deal in quantitative analysis very well. But then so I shall skip that. But if any of you is interested to do the data analysis, then I think Professor Jana provided a fantastic opportunity to listen to him, and he made an excellent summary of all the data that is out there and going around. That was a very instructive lecture for me. So, having spoken about the methodological and the methodological problems, I would now want to move to the ontological side of the thing. And although the word is very heavy, methodology, ontology, epistemology, and the words are very heavy, but they're very useful words in terms of thinking through, in terms of going back to asking some very basic questions. Okay, so what is ontology? Ontology is basically the nature of being, okay, or the nature of the matter, or the nature of something. So if I were to say I'm doing an ontological examination, or I want to share some ontological thoughts about COVID-19, I'm basically trying to say that I want to share some thoughts about this thing called nature, about this thing called COVID-19, because I really don't know what this thing is. Okay, and that is precisely the anxiety that Professor Jana was perhaps hinting at when he was saying that how his home has become, the epicenter of his life, because it has restricted his life. He doesn't know when he will be able to go to his academic department, where he spends a whole lot of time. He said 10:30 in the morning to 9 p.m. or 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's a lot of time. So we are all suffering from a certain anxiety, precisely because of the fact that we do not know what exactly we are encountering. So we all have our various ways of thinking, or various imaginations about what COVID-19 is. And as a sociologist, as a social anthropologist in training, as a student of sociology and social anthropology, I think that the question to be asked or the questions to be asked is, you place COVID-19 at the center, okay, and you look at the various perspectives that are being offered on it by fellow human beings and by fellow social groups. So you can actually study those imaginations, and that's going to give you a very good insight about about how populations deal with crisis. So I will, when I'm talking about the ontological problems of COVID-19, I will actually, I will actually talk about two things. One is I will talk about the materiality or the ontology of COVID-19 vis-a-vis the material sciences. So things that natural scientists do, or things that the corporeal scientists in Oxford University, along with scientists in Serum Institute of India, how they are looking at this crisis, okay, and what it means for them, or what it means for others to see, the laboratory at work. So that is going to be one of my musings. And the second one is going to be how social science and humanities, okay, or those perspectives that are available to social sciences and humanities, how through those perspectives we can shed some light as to what this COVID-19 thing is. So, talking about the corporeal sciences, and I'm not a specialist in. I'm not claiming that I'm a natural scientist by any way, but or let's say the disciplinary tradition that I'm following, when trying to make a comment, or when trying to think about the ontological um, availability of COVID-19 in laboratories. I'm basically talking, or I'm basically coming from a background, an intellectual background, which studies the history of science itself, or which studies the construction of scientific facts, okay, and in particularly with reference to the second, again, there is I spoke about how things move from France to the US to the UK and then to India. Unfortunately, here's another example, which is the work of Bruno Latour, who is a French philosopher based in Harvard University, and whose great book, for instance, Laboratory Life, the social construction of scientific facts, or the social construction of facts, if I'm not mistaken, is something which inspires these thoughts. Latour, of course, studied a laboratory that was dealing with endocrinology. So neuroendocrinology was something that he was dealing with. Endocrinology, of course, is the study of hormones, and nerves. But that aside, the technicalities aside, the study that he came up with, about how science and scientific facts are actually constructs. They are not necessarily truths over lifetimes, and this is something that I'm going to tell you as well, or I'm going to talk about as well. They are not truths over lifetimes, and one of the best examples that I often cite is that at one point in time the world was supposed to be geocentric, till Copernicus came and said that no, it's heliocentric, and then Galileo came and proved that it is heliocentric indeed, that within the solar system, or as long as it is the solar system, it is the earth which moves around the sun, and not the other way around, that the geocentrists, the Aristotelian thinking would go. But now, with the coming of something called the multiverse, we have even moved beyond universe, and we are talking about multiverse. Stephen Hawking, Michio Kaku, these physicists are at the forefront of theories about the multiverse. So when actually you are, your view of science, or your view of where you reside, has actually expanded and is no longer limited to the solar system, then what is the center of your universe? That's a question which is worth asking. And clearly, from geocentrism to heliocentrism, we are moving more towards cosmocentrism. And in a multiverse, you don't really know what is the center of these infinite universes. Okay, so the reason I'm saying this is that scientific truths, even scientific truths, are subject to expiry dates. Okay, so having said that, let us look at therefore the social perspective or the social view of science in the COVID-19 crisis and the social view of the laboratory in COVID-19 crisis. Right now, we are all looking forward, looking towards the laboratory, to come out with a vaccine or to come out with a magical solution to help us tide over this crisis. But let's remember that actually, from a savior, the laboratory, if we just go back 6 to 9 months, about 6 months back, the laboratory was actually at the center of suspicion because it was being thought that it's the virus, COVID-19 virus, is actually an artificial virus created in a certain part of the world. So from um, from an object of suspicion to an object of promise, to from an institution of suspicion to an institution of promise, this the traversing of this arc is something that could be a very plausible field of academic exploration in times to come. Fortunately, I'm not, I don't study economics or I don't study administration, so I do not have, what should I say, I do not have the burden of the immediate on me, and therefore I can always think of something that is evolving, something that can also be something that needs to be watched very carefully and then, written about. Yeah. So at the same time, a question which is worth pondering is that no matter how much we are, investing our hopes and our thoughts on this vaccine being produced within this thing called the laboratory, we are also putting our hopes on the laboratory, which does not exist in the laboratory and which actually exists outside the laboratory in society. Okay, and this is what is called the herd. So when we are talking about herd immunity, okay, we are actually betting our horses on the fact that because of the violation of the same social distancing, which is crucial, okay, for to avoid getting caught in the COVID crisis, because of violations of the social discipline, there is possibility of a herd immunity which will grow, okay, and then that immune that boosting of the immunity that's going to happen within the human body will somehow be able to avert the crisis to avert the crisis which COVID-19 is. And if that happens before a vaccine comes out, because both are possibilities right now, then what will be the value, okay, or what will be the definition of these range of experiments, or this intense amount of labor, this intense amount of emotion, that the intense amount of effort that scientists are putting in, that scientists are putting in the lab. Is it then going to be regarded as a ritual which failed? Because again, let me take you to the father of, not, I won't say father, but he's definitely he's definitely the father of social anthropology in post-colonial times, or in modern times, that is Claude Levi-Strauss. And in his book called The Savage Mind, Levi-Strauss makes a comparison between the mind of the savage, quote unquote savage, that is the person who lives in nature and who doesn't have this anthropocentric tendency to validate himself or herself by the conquest of nature. Okay, so that mind, who we often call uncivilized, and the mind of the engineer who works in a laboratory with with scientific tools in hands, and he says that their minds often function in very similar ways and in very similar patterns, with regard to classification and with regard to the ability for abstraction. And of course, I don't want to get into it because the very purpose of my talk today is not to offer solutions or not to offer conclusions, like I said, but drawing from Meer's that beautiful sentence which he used from Bakhtin, that academic life. I'm just summarizing it. I don't remember what exactly he said. That academic life, or in fact social life, is participation in a long and winding and meandering dialogue. So that is precisely what, as a social entity who is also also a trainee academic, that is what I'm trying to do. So having said this, again, I would, may I know how much time I have in hand? Do I have another 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Just give me just 10 seconds. Okay. Now, having said that, with that in the background, what I wish to now come to is, which has for long been the very core of conventional sociology, or which has been the very core of conventional social anthropology. And it is in this realm that I wish to locate the social and economic impact of COVID-19. So in fact, I really haven't had um, I must confess that I haven't rigorously pursued COVID-19 in the last 6 months, but I have published two things on COVID-19, and both are on news websites. I won't say they are rigorous academic work. The first is the COVID crisis coming from China, and the problems of it. And the second was an interview with Professor Rana Mitter, who is director of Chinese studies at Oxford University. These are the two things that I have done so far, and I've learned from both of them. While interacting with those who published the articles, and while interacting with Professor Mitter himself. Uh, and what he said is that the first thing that struck me, in that conversation that I was having with him, was that he identified that COVID crisis is actually started as a politics of denial. Okay, so you would remember, and this politics of denial is something that is very interesting to look at, because it started off as a denial by the Chinese authorities about the existence of any such virus. That was one. The second was, it was the denial by the WHO, and the WHO, I think, whoever was at the top, Professor, Doctor. I forget him. I forget his name. It will come to me. I'll just see it. So there was a denial by WHO that there's something for which we need to raise an international alert. There's something that is going to take the proportions of a pandemic. It was largely being it was being hoped that it's going to be something like SARS virus. Well, it didn't turn out to be one. It was hoped that it would go away on its own, or at least it will not reach pandemic proportions. Uh, but it did. So there was a politics of denial at the level of a nation state, which is China, then at the level of an international organization, which is the WHO, and then we had President Trump refusing to wear a mask for a long time, because that would have probably jeopardized his political posturing as a macho man. Similarly, we also saw that happen to Bolsonaro, the Brazilian president. Um, uh, so, So there has been a politics of denial, like I said, that was happening. And this politics of denial gives rise to its own anxieties. This politics of denial gives rise to, this politics of denial gives rise to anxieties, which then have social consequences. Very recently, you would remember that the Bombay High Court has actually observed that in the midst of all this, a particular social group may have well been made a scapegoat. And so, denial necessarily is not a good thing. That's what I'm saying. But this it is precisely when the nature of something is unknown that denial can often be a recourse to it by governments. Okay, and denial again in the face of disease has a long history, particularly with respect to the country which is the origin of this disease, and that is China. And I just want to jog your minds through this, because not many of us know. I was just asking my students the other day that who is the biggest killer, or mass murderer, let's say, in the modern world, and most of them would say that, of course, it's Hitler. I mean, yes, I mean, no doubt about that, unless you actually start looking at the figures of how many people were killed by Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin, and those numbers are actually pretty dangerous. So much so that it actually crosses. I mean, I won't accuse Stalin for uh, uh, for disease related murders. I won't say that, but that's aside. But if you look at the history of China itself, I mean, they have done some very their denials of diseases have actually led to human massacres. And let me just put a number to it, because the magnitude of this disease needs to be put down. And the Chinese economist, for instance, Mao Yushi, estimates that 4 crore 50,000 people were actually killed while China was moving for the Great Leap Forward. Okay, it was an agrarian restructuring during which a lot of things were done, which a lot of experiments were performed, like the killing of pests, which included unfortunately the sparrow as well. And the sparrow, the Chinese couldn't figure out the sparrow. If you kill the sparrow is not even if it is a pest, it's also a killer of locusts, a problem with which North India is dealing with right now. So you kill the sparrows. Okay, you manage to kill some of the, you manage to kill one pest, that is the sparrow, but you allowed many other pests to grow, as a result of which you would know what followed. It was the great, it was starvation which followed. And Mao Yushi estimates that 4 crore 50 lakh people died, seconded by another economist whose name is Yang Jisheng. Um, and it's not the first time that the Chinese have resorted to the politics of denial with disease. You can also look at the work of Gao Yoji, who was a gynecologist and ran away to the US, where she died some time back, because again the Chinese were dealing in blood collection through not so hygienic purpose or hygienic methods of syringe use, which led to an explosion of HIV cases in this very Wuhan province. Okay, and that was also covered up. So yes, so the politics of denial is something that I wanted to say. At the same time, there is an absolute opposite which has also happened. Okay, and that is the politics of exaggeration, or what Jean Baudrillard will call what Baudrillard would call hyper reality. That is when the real is actually magnified to a much greater extent. And how is that done? Well, it's done through, I mean, Baudrillard's classic study is on the media. So, it's it's a multiple screen thing. So it's not only happening in situ, but it's also happening on your television screens. It's also happening on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, on your WhatsApp, on your SMS. So COVID, on your newspaper. Okay, so COVID, what is at situ is actually being, is it's multiplying itself many times. Okay, and this is also, which is obviously very helpful, because it allows people, to maintain, to be conscious of the fact and maintain social distancing. But there's also an element of exaggeration of the threat. And this is typically available when you look at the numbers that the media churns out every day. So today we have supposedly, or we have crossed the 30 lakh mark, if the media is correct. But then if you constantly look at the 30 lakh mark, you often forget that those 30 lakh mark also includes cases that have been, by the grace of God and thankfully to the scientists and the doctors, been cured. So what percentage of people today, right now, are COVID positive is not something that 30 lakh tells you. Okay, so you could say that yes, it makes people conscious. Okay, it makes people aware, but at the same time, it can make people feel anxious, anxious in a negative way as well. So, yeah, having said these two things about the politics of denial and the politics of exaggeration that that the global society is having to deal with, there are some other issues also with 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 which the global society is dealing with, and one of them, which again not much emphasis has been put on it, is the issue of domestic violence. I mean, fortunately for many of us, the safest place in the midst of the COVID crisis is is the home. So you are being told that stay home, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home, no matter how much. But what about those people, or what about the lives of those people whose home is the worst place to be in? And here I'm talking about survivors or victims, depending on the case of domestic violence. So that, I think, is a great MA or MPhil level dissertation that can be taken up, for study. And if it throws up something very new, then of course one can take it up for a full length PhD investigation. Uh, Having said that, also, what is COVID doing in the arena of romance? Okay, so two particular things to think about in this regard is that typically an extramarital affair, doesn't happen inside the home, not always. Okay, but it typically would happen in a workplace, or a place in the public sphere, which is not a private space. Okay, where you are not having to share the space with your husband or your wife. So in when this when public spaces are more or less closed, okay, so what is happening to romantic relationships, well, which are called extramarital, but some would call that polyamory. So what is happening to polyamorous relationships is something that one can look at. Also, what is happening to dating apps such as Tinder, which emphasize almost entirely on a unlike a Bumble or an Isle, let's say, there are different types of dating apps which emphasizes more on bodily pleasure. So when you have entered in when you have entered a situation where social or physical closeness, physical closeness with an unknown person or even a known person is risky. So what happens to those situations, again, is something that could be taken up for a small study. And if it reveals something very new, or if it reveals something very very interesting, it can obviously be expanded further. Then COVID and employment, I don't think I would I would need to talk about, because COVID and the loss of employment, Professor Jana has already mentioned. I don't think I have the expertise to, to match him in any way. So I don't think after he has spoken, I should speak on it at all. Uh, uh, but something is again, something is very interesting about, this. He also, Professor Jana also made a distinction between social distancing, and he called it that, what we are also seeing, that social distancing, he also called it physical distancing. And this struck me actually when I was listening to his lecture, simply because of the fact that, in India, physical distancing, or at least in certain parts of India, physical distancing has a rather, dangerous past. And I am talking about Varna distinctions here, where, the terrible ill of untouchability, uh, was very much a practice, even 5 decades back. It happens to be a practice even now, something that I saw in the year 2008, when I was a student at the Asian College of Journalism, and the journalist P. Sainath, very renowned journalist, who was working with the Hindu and focusing entirely on agrarian affairs, used to take us for this exercise called covering deprivation. And that's where you see that, untouchability is not really a thing of the past, and nor is it that untouchability is practiced only by members of the higher varnas against members of the lower varnas. That doesn't happen. I mean, that it's also something with this which is practiced among the lowest of the varnas, among themselves. So what happens to this problem of untouchability when, when you have an environment where physical distancing is a necessity? And I saw this question being raised by an activist in some of these platforms where a lot of academics write. The Wire, for instance, I was not very sure whether to mention it or not, because I personally don't have a very positive, evaluation of that website. But anyway, nonetheless, it was an important point, which was made. But then, to think of it, it's and he or she, I don't remember the name of the person also. He or she was actually raising the question, or actually insinuating almost that, this in this era, or in these conditions of physical distancing, untouchability may also make a comeback. But that has a flaw, in the sense that untouchability is something which is practiced by one group against the other, but physical distancing is not something which will be practiced by one group against another, but it is universal physical distancing that we are looking at. So nobody, independent of whatever his or her supposed varna is, will require to be physically distant. And that's why I said supposed varna, because fortunately, at least legally, we have been able to, get ourselves rid of that. So when we are, so I think that, the effect of physical distancing on the problem of untouchability is an interesting, arc to explore. But again, one should not probably get into that with an already decided mind. And that the penultimate point which I wanted to raise is, is COVID-19 and mental health, because these are times of isolation. These are times also of job losses. So how, and these are also times of lesser availability of doctors. Why? Because, a lot of doctors, or a lot of the medical profession has actually, even in the highest, yeah, in most psychiatric departments, have also been to a certain extent, even 2 to 3 months back, had been pushed towards the COVID crisis, which meant that there were lesser number of doctors. Counseling sessions are actually, happening a lot over telephones, which means that you are being restricted to your private space from where you have to make the call, and it's not something that your counseling or whatever you want to tell your counselor is not something that you would want to say, okay, where you are surrounded by your family. So that is also again, how are people managing, or how are people adapting to such circumstances, is something again which can be looked into. And finally, I think something that the COVID-19, a great opportunity that COVID-19 has provided us, is the technology, making education more technological. So clearly, I mean, there will be the naysayers always, who will say that no, this is a digital divide. This is it's unequal and all of that. I mean, nobody is saying that you develop or you make education more technology based without creating the technological infrastructure. Just as we don't say that you can build schools, or let's say you can make or you can take education to the last person standing. When we say that, it doesn't mean that we are not going to build schools. So similarly, when we are saying that we need to explore the opportunity of making education more technology based. Okay, we are not saying, I mean, nobody is probably saying that you do it without building the technological infrastructure necessary for that. But having said that, the bigger problem is what happens, okay, when a face-to-face interaction becomes restricted to a four square, to a screen. All right, but then again, or pedagogy in itself has encountered such problems many a time. There was a time when pedagogy was primarily, through there was no recording. It was primarily a speech and hearing exercise before writing it down happened. Then and now, there has been that constant interface between whether a book with its beautiful smell, with the smell of the fresh page or the smell of the yellow page, okay, is how it's much better than a PDF. Okay, but a PDF is much more easier to carry, and a PDF is much more accessible. It's far more less expensive. I mean, thanks to Libgen, you can download anything and everything that you want to, which may not be available in your library, and which definitely you don't have the money to buy. So exploration of technology, I think, and education, and the experience of education via technology is something that one needs to look into in COVID times. With that, I think I can close the ontological part of what I was saying. So for in instead of starting, that we know COVID and therefore these are its impacts, you can also do a back calculation. That is, you can stand away from the COVID and study the different human beings who are looking at COVID, okay, and what are their perspectives, or what do information from their vantage points say about this virus which has stalled the world. Having said that, I think I will just take maybe 1 or 2 more minutes and talk a bit about epistemology, because it's necessary to say it. Mir, should I stop? Do I have a couple of more minutes?
Yes. Mahua,
Yeah.
tell something.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
so
Anyway, just wrap up in 1 or 2 minutes.
yeah, finally, the thing that I wish to say about the epistemological conditions, I think I have already cited the work of Latour in terms of looking at the crisis, or in terms of looking at the laboratory. And I also think that in terms of a very important issue which has arisen, that is the the migration, and governing populations. I think the work of Michel Foucault and his work on security, territory, and population is something which or his work on governmentality. These are two things that one can definitely look at. And I think I have touched upon my how the problem of how to study, what to study, when I said that instead of starting from COVID, we can look at COVID from the various perspectives that are going towards COVID. With that, I shall thank you all for listening to me, and thank you very much, Professor Sen, Professor Mir, and respected Principal Sir, for providing me an opportunity to speak at this August occasion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Majumdar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Majumdar, for your mind-numbing number of entry points that you provided to think through this COVID crisis. We'll have a question answer session, two or three quick questions. But before that, I'll make two announcements. First, after this, we'll have the paper presentation, chaired by Professor Malay Mukhopadhyay. Then he will give us a short lecture on COVID crisis. So, if anyone has any question, please. Any questions? Well, I'll start. I have a question
Yes.
for Professor Mojumdar. So this is a very confusing, because you talked about a lot about the interface of science and humanities or social sciences and all that. So this is what is something I have been thinking through for last 3-4 months. I was reading this book by Heisenberg on the uncertainty.
Uncertainty principle, yes.
There he mentions a very, I had no idea about this, but David Bohm, sometime back before the Bell experiment, he tried to come up with an antidote to the E equal to mc square by proposing that if maybe the information moves faster than the speed of light, then we have a kind of theory. So those are there. So there was a lot of kind of assumptions, inductive assumptions, which are proved themselves wrong. But then there is this thing that you said about Auguste Comte, that there is his hierarchy of sciences. When Comte mentions that physics, then biology, mathematics, and then
Biology at the top, yes.
and social sciences at the top. So, but then I came across this article by Jimal Khalili. After that, I was reading Heisenberg. He has proposed that after a point now that body is contained of 600 billion neurons or something like that, and we have no idea but how this body works actually. So finally, Jimal Khalili has written a paper where he says how maybe the connection is made, and that is possible through maybe in the Comte was right. Then he was a practicing physicist, I guess. Then he shifted to biology. So after all this, we are seeing that finally biology and physics are interactive. So all of the psychoanalysis we do, the narrative theory, etc., as has been, I don't know. Criticized by Deleuze and Guattari. This is all hukam. I'm using strong words, but there are chances that these are all hukams. Then when we even don't have the idea that how biology and physics interact, there is a distant possibility of finally culminating into the discussion of social sciences. And it will be a long time before we reach there. So then how to think through these things? When we know these are these plates, these plates or tectonic plates that are floating, and there are no proper base where to think through, because maybe these are all wrong. And how to I've been this is an ontological anxiety I was having as a student of sociology. So how do you think through this?
Well, Mir, I think that's a great question. And what you are basically hinting at is this anxiety that we suffer from. And I one particular anxiety which I must say that you must get rid of it, and that anxiety is how do we get it right? Okay, it may be, or rather it may be wrong. I think the question of actually right or wrong doesn't exist. Okay, at least not unless you are dealing with immediate sciences. Unless you have a mobile phone to make and it must transfer the call. If it doesn't connect, then it's wrong. something is wrong. But we are not in the business of doing such sciences. So as long as I think your deductions, your every step matches the previous step, I think that we should not be too bothered about where we are going. Okay. Put it very very typically, you should be in the academia, you should be a traveler within the university. So that's how you travel. You travel without thinking about the destination, as long as you're convinced about the idea that you are pursuing. Okay, because the university is a place to exercise your idea. The university is a place to push and to pursue the idea. The idea has to be key. I think that is one. Two is, I think you made a great point when you say that how is biology, physics, I mean, they are already interacting in biophysics and all of that. But how is it, if I understood your question correctly, how are we, how is the interdisciplinarity of social sciences? Well, it has opened itself up via literary theory to humanities, but how are we going to do it with physics and biology as well? I think that's a difficult question to ask. I have great faith in the national education policy which the government of India has now proposed, where you will not be bracketed as science student, humanities student, commerce student very early in life. Also, I think with these online courses available from Harvard, Oxford, II, Indian Institute of Sciences, IIT, you have great places from where you can do 3-month courses and brush up your knowledge on on physics or chemistry, and then bring it in. And as you said, August Kuhn, he actually coined the term sociology later. He
Yeah.
first called
So
discipline
physics.
social science.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I think the combination between physics and social sciences is very intimate, and at the same time, we must remember that the nature of science itself has started to change, because this is the time when we say of physics, we are we are out of the Newtonian phase. We are very much residing in Einsteinian physics, which is far more relativity, relativity, and therefore subjectivity in the social
Yeah.
sciences. So the relation between physics and social sciences are pretty close. So that is how I would again address and not answer your question.
Okay. So maybe the cat is dead or it is not dead. We don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll move on. So for our next session, which will be the paper presentation session chaired by Dr. Malay Mukhopadhyay. Before that, I would like request Dr. Mohashen, our convener, to please introduce Professor Malay Mukhopadhyay. Thank you, Professor Mojumdar.
Maloida, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Professor Urunoday Mojumdar, for delivering such a nice and elaborated lecture in this session. I once again thank you to come in this webinar. Okay, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, madam, and thank you to all my professors and seniors. Thank you.
Okay, okay, sir. Maloida, I am welcome you. Maloida,
Yes,
professor
yes.
and former head of the Department of Geography, Vishwabharati, teaching since last 32 years, supervised 19 PhD scholars for their doctoral degree, a geographer with immense passion on river, who is accepted worldwide to install marker stones at the source area of river Ajoy, Kopai, Kunur, Korola, and Kumari. Being a senior professor, he has taken out time for several creations which include exploratory books on subject oriented topics, uploading short stories, poems, and novels. As for example, Kolpo Bhugol নিয়ে published by Ananda Publishers, Kotha Chobi poems published by Subarnarekha, ভুল পথের পাকে published by অনুস্তাব, এভারেস্ট থেকে নায়াগ্রা published by Indian Publishing House. Passionately, he spent days with tribal communities, namely Ongi, Kani, Santal, Apatani, and is well known for trekking along 4 rivers of India. As for example, Tarapeni 1979, Kopai 1991, and again in 2017, Ajoy 1995, Morakhi 2000, and River Thames 2012 of England. So, Malaida, welcome in this webinar, and please we keep in this paper presentation session, and I over to Mir.
Welcome, Professor Mukhopadhyay.
Yes, welcome. Thank you.
Professor Mukhopadhyay will chair this paper presentation session. For that, I would like to invite Dr. Koel Paul, our faculty, to host this session.
Mohua, Professor Moloy Mukhopadhyay is one of my best friends. Do you know it? I
We
know
had no
Professor
idea.
Moloy Mukhopadhyay for long. And when I was in Vishwabharati for 9 months, he loved me a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Welcome. Molay Babu,
It's a
welcome.
privilege.
Welcome.
It's a privilege for me. Okay.
Thank you, Meet. Thank you, Mohuadi. Now it's the time for the paper presentation session, which is the heart of a webinar, or each and every webinar or seminar in our society. And I would like to welcome and thank you, Maulada. It was a huge privilege for us to have with us. And in a particular situation like COVID, when we are restricted to our home, but feel like we are in a university campus, as we spend so much of time with you, sir, it was a great privilege for us. At this session, we have 4 presenter, Maulada, and how much time they have to be given for their presenting session. If you permit it, then I will say to you.
Now, how much we have allotted? How much we have allotted for them?
4 presenter is here, and the total time is allotted there for them was 25 minutes. Is it more than?
Yeah.
Before that, it is 8 minutes, but time is too short. So I request Malaita give 5 or 6 minutes, and then 1 or 2 minutes for question answering.
Okay. Then I will request the presenter that they will deliver their lecture within 5 to 6 minutes. Okay. After that, if we get time, then we'll go for interaction or any suggestion or incorporation. Okay. How many are present here? Are they present? Yeah. Mrs. Ramya S.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I am here.
Yeah.
I am Ramya.
Then Priya Sinha. Then next presenter, Priya Sinha.
Yes, Maulana.
Yeah. Then Prasanjit Khan.
Yes, he is also here.
Also here. Already has left. I have shown that he has left. And the last one, there is a Tripti Professor, Assistant Professor Tripti Das from Department of Bengali. Is she here?
Hello, we have all the 4 presenters here actually.
Okay, then please start. I like to.
With you, to Maulana, our principal sir and convener, I will like to start the presentation session.
Okay. Please.
At first, I would like to introduce Ms. Remeya S., Assistant Professor, St. Joseph's College, and her presentation is on a study of customer satisfaction of cycle-run structures among the college students with special reference to Swissa's district. Ms. Remeya S., may I?
Hello, ma'am. There is a change in the topic. My topic is not that. I will just show in the PPT. Shall I present the PPT?
You can show your presentation. You unmute yourself and you on your video so that you can visible to everyone. Okay, you have about 5 minutes for your presentation and 2 minutes for question answering session.
If I show your title of your presentation.
Okay. Okay, sir. Sir, is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Hello? Is my screen visible?
No, not that is.
1 second, sir.
You please put on your video on.
Miss Priya, please put on your video.
Hello?
not yet visible, no, madam?
Not visible. Please on your video so that we can see the presentation of yours.
Okay, ma'am, this video is not working, I think so.
Or maybe you can just present.
Okay, shall I present?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I start my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Go for
Okay.
it.
My topic of presentation is a study on students' perception towards e-learning and study abroad plans in the wake of COVID-19 with special reference to Thrissur district. In these testing circumstances, due to continuous lockdown, the biggest benefactors and the blessings in the disuse are the online learning platforms. The online learning platforms have seen a spike in the number of students who are enrolling in the plethora of courses they offer. From courses on various government sector exam and technical courses, there are also activities like painting, dancing, etc. is also available at the most affordable price. India
Excuse
is
me,
not
madam.
moving.
Excuse me. Can you please
Hello.
put on your video so that it can be easy to understand for us?
Ma'am, my video is not working. My camera is not working. Only sound is coming here.
Okay, okay, okay. Go for it then.
Shall I check once again?
Okay, definitely go for it.
Hello.
Carry on. There is some problem, I think, in your video. You can carry on.
Ma'am, now is it visible?
No, it was not visible. Yes, yes, yes. It
Okay.
was visible.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it is coming.
Okay, okay. I will just show my topic. My topic is a study on students' perception towards e-learning and study abroad plans in the wake of COVID-19 with special reference to Thrissur district. The students can learn anywhere from the world at his convenience. Students in the country are more cautious when it comes to spending and traveling time, cost of traveling, etc. Online learning has covered a lot of ground in recent times, and the interface is more user friendly, and student gets a classroom experience by sitting in the corners of their room. There are facilities to communicate with educators and the students of the same course. Students can get a solution to their problems not only during hours of the class but also during the time they are studying themselves via email or online chat system. The national lockdown has hindered the education of students. Universities were shut and syllabus stranded. The educational institutions were allowed to adopt online learning and infuse a virtual study culture. Thus, the pandemic is already steering the sector forward with technological innovation and advancements. The switch to online education has been ensuring that students suffer no loss of studies and their progress has been tracked with timely evaluation. Alchemizing education with technology and forming a collaborative strategy to tread ahead while providing online lectures also enable the students to study creatively. Boosting retention of the syllabus by using innovative technology, the universities are also engaging students to learn by choice and not just by their physical presence in a classroom. Medical students can opt for interactive sessions to discuss specific case studies, and engineering students could also evolve into the depths of environmental engineering. Effects of COVID-19 on student community are no face-to-face teaching or exam, suspension of many on-campus activities, exams and thesis defenses postponed, many countries restricted entry into borders, delay in awarding high school diplomas or degrees, and change in admission process. The main objectives of the study are to study the attitude of college students towards online learning before and during COVID-19 lockdown period, to study the difference in attitude of college students towards online learning with regard to gender, to study the difference in attitude with regard to locality, to assess the effectiveness of e-learning during lockdown period, and to assess the opinion of students to go for higher studies in the midst of COVID-19. Methodology. Data required for the study are obtained through primary and secondary sources. Primary data has been collected with the help of well-structured online circulated questionnaire from 60 students who were using e-learning sources to complete their regular courses for skill development before and during lockdown period. The secondary data has been collected from books, journals, and websites. Descriptive method has been used for the purpose of the study. The sample of the study is 60 college students. Percentage analysis, ranking, and Likert scale has been used for the study. The major limitations of the study are the study covered only the students of Thrissur district, information given by the respondents may be biased, and the sample size selected was only 60. Importance of the study, there are certain perennial issues that plague e-learning. First and foremost is the digital divide in the country, and many efforts from the government are required to fill this gap. It is not possible to assume that online courses represent the future. The recent outbreak has left many experts wondering the course of events in future, and online learning is the only thing right now which can save students and teachers' life from coming to complete standstill. More than 300 million students worldwide are having their education disrupted by the spread of coronavirus. Schools and colleges haven't faced this level of disruption in generation. Learners, teachers, and families are at the heart of everything. In this uncertain environment, learning continues even if it can't happen in person. The sudden lockdown can be a testing for the students, but due to various exams being postponed, what it offers is time. The isolation can be a gift for all students if they use it to their best advantage. Online learning is a savior in these testing times, and by choosing to learn from the most qualified teachers at the cheapest of prices, students can make most of the time they have in their hand. So, in this pandemic situation, there is a need to study the effectiveness of online learning. Scope of the study covers the students using online mode of learning before and during the lockdown period. Dependent variables and independent variables have been identified. The major findings of the study are college students have positive attitude towards online learning. There is no significant difference in attitude towards online learning between male and female college students, and no difference in attitude towards e-learning between urban and rural college students. Majority of the respondents are attending online sessions in order to complete their regular degree or diploma course. Majority of the respondents are using smartphones for attending their classes. The device which is used for attending the session is the most important factor that influences the effectiveness of e-learning. The internet issues are posing major challenges to the success of online education in India, which highlights that there is digital divide in the economy. There was considerable number of students who were using e-learning mode of education for the first time during lockdown, which also affect the effectiveness and perception towards e-learning. Student and compulsive shift from face-to-face teaching to online learning also affected the perception of students towards e-learning. And the main factors which affect the effectiveness of e-learning are availability of suitable device, familiarity to the use of technology, and required infrastructure facilities. The dream of studying abroad is still alive. Only 5.4% students intend to cancel their study abroad plans in the light of COVID-19, and the students who were primarily interested in in-person study opportunities now entertaining the idea of studying an international degree digitally. Around 45.2% of students are interested in studying their program virtually. They are very much concerned about the quality and recognition of virtual degree. Only 10% plan to cancel their future study plan. Although students are feeling uncertainty, they are not jumping to cancel their plans. They dedicate time and resources to their study abroad plans, and they are also passionate about implementation of the plans. Around 50% postpone their study plan with the goal of resuming studies at a later date. For 40% students, COVID-19 has not impacted their study abroad plans, and they continue studying as normal. There has been no plan among students to return back to India, and they are watching how the virus will impact the country they are studying in. Moving on to conclusion, from the above study, it can be concluded that the attitude of college students towards online learning is independent with regard to gender and locality. Therefore, the present study suggests a greater probability on e-learning that they will accept it. As the attitude of college students towards e-learning found to be very high, it is expected that college students will use e-learning strategy for their learning. The following COVID-19 has caused students and universities alike to adapt quickly to the changing circumstances. The following suggestions has been given. Proper awareness should be created among the students regarding e-learning. Frequent parents meetings should be conducted. The government and college authorities should take the initiatives to provide laptops and smartphones for the deserving students coming from low class and middle class family. Frequent quizzes and assignments should be given to them. Proper network connection and other infrastructure facilities for e-learning should also be provided. Recorded version of online classes should also be made available. A feedback mechanism should also be provided so that students can express their grievances, if any. These are my references. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very nice presentation. Very nice. Very
Thank
nice
you.
presentation. Please introduce yourself. Rema, please introduce yourself. Well,
I am Remya, sir, working as assistant professor and research scholar in St. Joseph's College, Autonomous Irinjalakuda, Thrissur, Kerala. From Kerala, I am coming.
thank you very much. Very nice presentation. Very nice presentation. Thank you. Thank you. From the core of my heart, I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramya. From Kerala, you will be presenting here, and it was a honor for us to have you in such a adverse conditions.
Thank you, ma'am.
If
Thank you.
question, please ask Ramya. We have 2 minutes for it. If anybody have any questions? Okay, I think there is no question here. I personally congratulate Shomya because your work you have done in a COVID situation and create a vast about it and make valuable suggestions for us. It was very helpful to
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
find such a suggestion.
Thank you so much.
Maulana, to Remna, if you have any suggestions, please.
Now, you see that at the end, I'd like to cover all the presentations, their ideas, and if I have some opinion in connections with their presentation, that time, that will save our time, no?
Okay. Shall we move?
Okay, I also very happy with her presentation, and I have some, observations in her study. Anyway, I will deliver at the end. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Presenter with is Professor Priya Sinha, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Birbhum Mahavidyalaya. Her topic of presentation is New Media, Youth and Education. I request Professor Priya Sinha for her presentation and yes, here it is. I request Priya Sinha for her presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Very much.
Yes, you are audible.
Good afternoon, everybody. My sincere regards to our respected President, sir, Principal, sir, honorable speakers and guests. My best wishes to the IQSC of our college. My gratitude and warm wishes to all who are present here and are associated with it. I also extend my best wishes to each and every one of Birbhum Mahavidyalaya. My best wishes to all of us to overcome this pandemic named COVID-19. My topic today is New Media, Youth and Education. As we have seen, this pandemic has taught us lessons for lifetime. The practical experiences gathered during this pandemic have given us enough sorrow and pain. Challenges are many. We are trying to overcome those by our honest efforts. One such experience is in the field of education. The prolonged lockdown and the present tense situation have led us to think of an alternative educational model, going beyond the four-walled institutional structure. This is where new media is playing a prospective role. The usage of social media along with Google Meet, Zoom and other apps are helping us in continuing our learning process. The shift from offline to online education has also made a shift in the usage of social media from a simple communicative medium to an educational medium. Not that this is entirely new, but what is new is now new media is the only available medium of continuing education in this changing scenario. Yes, definitely there are certain limitations like number one, connectivity problem due to the unstable internet network. Number two, non-availability of quality devices to many. Number three, inadequate application of social media for many. Number four, high maintenance cost. Number five, of course, the problem of hacking social media account. Still, we both the teachers and the students are using WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook, Google Meet, Zoom, etc. for educational purposes. In this paper, I have tried to show how this communicative medium is becoming a medium of education today for many youths. Here I want to share few major findings of my research with you all. Number one, before the pandemic, most of the youths used social media apps like Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, mainly as a communicative medium or a medium of entertainment. The social media was mainly a media of daily chat apps for them. Very little constructive usage of new media was seen by them. To them, WhatsApp was something in which one can chat or do things mainly for passing time. Facebook was something where they would like to post their photos or videos carrying flavors of their socio-personal life. In YouTube, they were busy watching different films, songs, or videos. Not that these purposes of social media are gone these days, but some new dimensions are added along with. Today, social media is a medium of education along with entertainment. Number two, today social media is a medium to carry out our distant learning process. We often take help of this medium for engaging in the teaching learning process, like the voice records for the students in the WhatsApp, Facebook Lives and videos as part of virtual classes, links and videos of different educational webinars on YouTube, etc. Number three, in the earlier decades like the 1960s and 70s, there was a system of college education where students of other colleges were allowed to hear special lectures delivered by the eminent professors of a college. The only intention behind it was maximizing quality education for all. Recently in social media, I am finding such a trend. Particularly, the Facebook and YouTube apps are indulging in the process of majority education. A single click from one's smartphone or laptop is helping them to access the voice of their respected teachers, often saving time and energy. Number four, our generation is accustomed with a term that we call 24 into 7. This online education through different apps are giving the teachers and the students the opportunity to remain connected 24 into 7. Time and distance cannot be a hindrance for the learning process. And number five, another very prospective finding is the recent practice of breaking boundaries with regard to geographical distance as well as disciplinary structures. Today, through online education system, particularly through the webinars, we are able to associate ourselves with various subjects, thereby taking a multidisciplinary approach. Students are getting the opportunity to hear lectures and participate in those which help in their overall intellectual development. This is a new scope offered by new media. Distance and subjects are no more a limitation for participation. Through all these points, I have tried to show how this communicative medium is becoming a mode of education today for many youths. If properly used with care and if given honest and collective efforts, this medium can definitely bring us more scope in near future. It is time to utilize technology for our betterment. Education can never stop. It has to continue with the same mantra of Swami Vivekananda as arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Priya Sinha, for such an exclusive exposure of our thinking. And really now at the stage, it was very true that distance does not restrict ourselves, and we endeavor that truth daily. Now we have our third presenter. Our third presenter is Professor Proshenjit Khan, Department of Philosophy, Assistant Professor, Birbhum Mahavidyalaya, and his topic of discussion is impact of COVID-19 in the existing socio-economic environment of philosophical view. I will like to request Professor Proshenjit Khan, please unmute yourself and start your presentation. Are you there, Proshenjit Khan? Are you there, Professor Proshenjit Khan?
Audible?
Proshenjit, please unmute yourself and on your video so that it was visible and easy to understand.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
I think there is a network problem, Proshenjit. We can't hear you.
Good. Hello.
Yes, you are audible. Please start your presentation.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Good afternoon. I am audible.
Yes, you are audible. Please start.
Yes.
Great. Impact
are properly not listening, no? You cannot hear properly.
Yes, actually we can't hear you, Krishnji. We can't hear you, Krishnji. Krishnji, will you left and again make a join to us so that the network problem may be resolved? Monoira, we have problem with the third person.
Hello.
Here you.
I proceed, Khan.
Yes.
Hello. I am audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Hello.
Audible too.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. My topic is impact of COVID-19 in the existing socio-economic environment, philosophical view. COVID-19 has spread through a deadly infection with a terrible message for the next world. The number of infection is increasing day by day all over the world. The great panic, the uncertainty, the loss of life in various newspaper and electronic media, especially the economic loss, is being discussed more. The amount of financial loss in any sector is being calculated repeatedly. The government has already announced financial incentives for the government industry, the country's largest sector in foreign trade. In the garment industry, where government incentives have been announced, other public-private sectors are also starting to seek incentives. But the root of the problem is not being discussed. In calculating the financial loss and the loss of life, we don't realize that inconsistent economic development and devastations are responsible for the global epidemic. This epidemic shows that it's revenge of nature. In a recent month, COVID-19 has caused significant global social and economic distress. Government and health officials around the world have introduced mandatory preventive measures to combat COVID-19. Hand sanitizer, gloves, and masks, which have contributed to large quantities of medical waste. Social distancing and mandatory lockdown also have been put in place to protect the people from COVID-19. This epidemic has caused severe demographic change, and unemployment and economic activities have been shut down to save human lives. Transformations and travel industries are most severely hit as global tourism has fallen to almost zero in recent months. As a solution, economic institutes have introduced stimulus packages worth more than 6 trillion. However, restricted economic activities have also contributed towards a cleaner environment. However, environmental changes are not permanent and the pollution level may rise again in the future. As a result, current research suggests that policymakers must introduce stringent environmental policies to promote clear energy. Socioeconomic and demographic factors indicate that COVID-19 is not affecting everyone in the same way. Shutdowns cause many people are lost their incomes, factory workers lost their job, they will not buy food from street, who will then be unable to afford to buy their ingredients from the market. And the market seller will have little or no money to buy product from the farmer. They will all struggle to provide for their families. People need to rethink development philosophy in order to survive. We have to think about conserving nature. Karl Marx said that only communism could solve this crisis when the exploitations of man by man and the exploitations of nature by man will end. In 1987, the think of progression, an American theorist, philosopher, and environmentalist have produced a theory that called social ecology. Social ecology established that connection between the concept of society and ecology. The theory takes an evolutionary approach to the analysis of nature and society and explain how human nature and biological nature are related. Marxist philosopher has divided society into first nature, second nature, and free nature. In the process of dialectical materialism, integrative society and the first nature is the primitive age that excited biological natural culture, which is something that changes in the progress of evolution. Evolving from the first nature, man acquires his physical and intellectual strength and form a society. The interrelationship of society with nature will be the interrelationship of society with nature will be inseparable. The right of every living thing will be established in nature. Arnenes, a philosopher and ecologist, speak of deep ecology. In nature, every human being has the same right to survival as human being, and every living being is dependent on each other. Indian Vedic philosophy also speak of respecting nature. So it is time to think to build a society based on science and natural philosophy for our survival. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Prosenjit. Your
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Priya's presentation was also good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello.
Hello.
We have one presenter. Before move to the fourth presenter, I just want to share a moment of experience that I have had from Roshan last 2 or 3 minutes, that how we shift to alternate of arrangement in a adverse condition to to when he is presenting alternate arrangement of another phone. That is how we live in our COVID situation. How we sustain ourselves is how much quickly we move to the alternative way of living to sustain ourselves. It is a message of society, and I think it was unintentionally Proshenjit have shared with us. Now we have our fourth presenter. It was অধ্যাপিকা তৃপ্তি দাস, বাংলা বিভাগ, বীরভূম মহাবিদ্যালয়। উপস্থাপনা করোনার প্রভাব। আমি তৃপ্তি দাসকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি তার বক্তব্য পেশ করার জন্য। তৃপ্তি, তৃপ্তি, I think there is a problem with net with her too, and we will have with Preeti in a while. Please excuse us for a minute. প্রীতি প্রীতি তোমার ভিডিও অন করো, আনমিউট করে তোমার বক্তব্য তুমি পেশ করো। তোমার কথা
স্টার্ট করো, স্টার্ট করো।
প্রীতি আনমিউট করো, তোমার আওয়াজ শোনা যাচ্ছে না। This is how we deal with the digital platform. As we all are not very experienced, so we have to face such problem in the here with you. Tripti is here with us.
ওর মাইক্রোফোনটা আনমিউট করতে বলো। মিউট করা আছে।
বারবার চলে যাচ্ছে, বোধহয় নেটওয়ার্ক কাজ করছে না।
ওর নেটওয়ার্কে প্রবলেম আছে।
ও চেষ্টা করছে, বেচারা বাচ্চা মেয়ে চেষ্টা করছে।
Well, you can ask, you can request Molaida to give her observations of 3 previous presenters. Well, you can request Molaida in this time to give her observations, give his observations of the previous 3 presenters.
Please share your experience with these 3 presenters that we have already listened, so that we can have time for Tripti, and the webinar is going on in the floor.
Okay, thank you, Quail. I'm really happy that I'm the part of this presentation session, and honestly speaking, I'm really I feel honored that I'm in that session where 3 papers presented by Tripti has come, joined, I think. Okay. Allow her to deliver.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
আমাদের কলেজের অধ্যক্ষ ডক্টর পার্থসারথী মুখোপাধ্যায় এবং উপস্থিত অন্যান্য সম্মানীয় ব্যক্তিদের জানাই আমার আন্তরিক শ্রদ্ধা এবং প্রণাম। আমার স্টুডেন্ট ছাত্রছাত্রীদের জানাই শুভেচ্ছা এবং ভালোবাসা। আমার আজকের আলোচ্য বিষয় আমাদের জীবনে করোনার প্রভাব। কুসুমের মাস কাব্যগ্রন্থের কুসুমের মাস কাব্যগ্রন্থের প্রার্থনা কবিতায় কবি অজিত দত্ত বলেছিলেন, জীবন জীবনহীন, রুদ্ধ প্রাণ অবরুদ্ধ আশা।
অন্যরা সবাই আনমিউট করে দিন, নাহলে
বর্ণহীন লিপিহীন দিনগুলি বিনাশমূলীন। প্রেক্ষিতে এই উক্তি যথাযথ। 3 অক্ষরের একটা শব্দ করোনা আমাদের জীবনকে স্তব্ধ করে দিয়েছে, কেড়ে নিয়েছে আনন্দ, পরিবর্তে বাড়ছে আতঙ্ক, পারস্পরিক অসহিষ্ণুতা। তবে করোনার মতো সংকটকালে মানুষের 2 সত্তার প্রকাশ ঘটে। কথাকার শরৎচন্দ্র শ্রীকান্ত উপন্যাসে ইন্দ্রনাথকে দেখিয়েছেন যে মৃত্যুভয়কে উপেক্ষা করে মৃত্যুদেহকে সম্মান জানিয়েছে। অন্যদিকে রামবাবু এবং তার স্ত্রী শ্রীকান্তকে নিজের স্বার্থে ব্যবহার করে অসুস্থতার সময় ফেলে রেখে চলে যেতে পিছপা হয়নি। অতীত এবং বর্তমান সর্বত্র একই চিত্র। আসলে বদল হয় কালের, মানসিকতা নয়। বদলাও না তুমি, বদলে যায় না আমিও। তাই মানসিক সভ্যতাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখার স্বার্থে যে ডাক্তার নার্সরা জীবনকে বাজি রাখছেন, আমরা তাদেরকেই ভরসা করছি। কারণ এখন আমাদের হৃদয় শুকনো দিঘির মতো এবং আমাদের চৈতন্যে মরক লেগেছে। কবি কৃষ্ণদেবের মতো জীবনানন্দের কবিতায় প্রায় একই কথা। পৃথিবীর গভীরতম অসুখ এখন আমরা শেখা মাস্টার মশাই এবার দেখা দেখি অজ্ঞতার কারণে জলবাহিত রোগ কলেরা মহামারীর রূপ নিয়েছে। বর্তমানে দেখলাম একই চিত্র। কিছু মানুষের অজ্ঞতা এবং অসভ্যতার জন্য আমাদের দেশ করোনার শিকার হয়ে গেল এবং এর কুফলটা বেশিরভাগ ভোগ করলো প্রান্তিক মানুষ, কারণ ওরা কাজ করে দেশের দেশান্তরে, বঙ্গ কলিঙ্গ সমুদ্র নদীর ঘাটে ঘাটে, পাঞ্জাব বোম্বাই গুজরাটে। কারণ করোনা শুধু আমাদের খারাপ শিক্ষা দেয়নি, করোনা আমাদের বুঝিয়ে দিয়েছে প্রকৃতির উপর অত্যাচারের জবাব সেভাবেই দিয়ে যাবে, চলবে নিজের খেয়ালে। সুতরাং নিজের সাথে মানুষকে পরিবেশের সাথে মিতালি করে নিতে হবে। করোনা আমাদের বুঝিয়ে দিয়েছে একাকিত্বের যন্ত্রণা, ক্ষুধার যন্ত্রণা। তাই আমাদের মূল মন্ত্র হোক সংবাচ্ছাধ্বং সংবদধ্বং সংভূমনংসি জানতাম দেবাভাগম যথা পূর্বে সংজাননম উপাসতে। থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ তৃপ্তিকে এত রকম যান্ত্রিক গোলযোগ সত্ত্বেও নিজের বক্তব্য খুব সুন্দরভাবে আমাদের সঙ্গে শেয়ার করার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ। এবার আমি অনুরোধ করব মলয়দাকে, উনি যদি আমাদের এই প্রেজেন্টেশন সম্পর্কে তার ব্যক্তিগত মতামত আমাদের সঙ্গে শেয়ার করেন।
Okay, thank you, Koel. Actually, when I got the invitation from Moha, when she requested me, Malada, you have to take a chair for a session where the 4 presenters are there. That time I agreed to be the chairperson of this session. From the early morning, from 10 a.m., I was in another webinar, and from there I got relief at around 3 p.m. and I was hurried to join in this session. And honestly speaking, I am really benefited with these 3 presenters' observation, perception, and deliberations. But I have some questions, but I have some philosophy in connections with what we are facing today in this pandemic situation. First of all, the first paper presented by Remia is, she is in favor of online study and e-learning, and but my question is that if we go to this, if we lean towards this system of study, then what about society? What actually Tripti, she mentioned in his presentation that Jiboner Jonno, because we are for others. But in that situation, my question is that means we are going towards a education system that is with one education system in the earth. And unfortunately, the countries, particularly the Western world, those who have more infrastructure, those who have more connectivity, and they ultimately, dictate us the what sort of and what should be the syllabus and what is the way of teaching. Everything will be decided by them. The countries like, not India in the developing part, in the higher part, countries like Kenya, countries like Ghana, and there should not be any special education system. And fortunately, you all know that in my area, Shantiniketan, the teachers are referred as elder brother. So Molayda, the Koel is referring me as Molayda, and Momas also called me as Molayda. Is an identity, you see, and which is very rare in the earth. And now, for your kind information, some parts of the world, they are going to follow this. But if we go for this monotonous education system, single one-net education system, then all will spoil this type of isolated, unique, excellent, and beautiful education system. E-learning is good because the inaccessibility is vanished. A boy or a person can get knowledge or study from a distant part of the world, okay. This is the good part. Okay, I am in favor of the e-learning, but when you outline the syllabus for the rest of the world, then you must consider the individual isolated in some remotest part. What sort of education system is going on? Because all you know that term, that unity in diversity, that creates our earth is beautiful. If the entire earth is in the same part, same fashion, then earth lost its glory and the attraction. That means the mosaicing of the education system. So therefore, the education system of Shantiniketan or education system of any remote part, that should be entertained, and syllabus should be outlined by giving importance or weightage of that particular area or the system of education. So e-learning is good for technological advancement. Everybody can reach up to this education. So therefore, we must take care, give attention, not to come into a monotonous education system. Education should be different. A tribal education system and a modern society education system is different. That's why our art is beautiful. Okay. Now, next presenter, there is a Pia Shina. Excellent, beautiful, beautiful presentation. And he mentioned that this geographical boundary, disciplinary boundary will be evaporated. And she mentioned beautifully in her lecture that the decades before, when some colleges allows to come the other college students to attend a particular beautiful class or very interesting classes. Okay, the system is there, and to get the higher education, to get the beautiful teacher or beautiful classes, not to make them mix them into one net. And so, you know that one word in one terminology in geography, that is the eco-monopolies. The Dr. Din, he said that day will come when the whole earth turns into an urban unit. And he mentioned in his article that if that will come, so many good things will be eroded and spoiled. So be careful. We must take care, and in what direction we'll go and how far we'll go. That's very important question. And then the Prosenjit, his paper presentation is excellent by its content, because he's talking about the social ecology. Okay, and that is a question now. If we go for technological, if we sell ourselves to the technology only, then indirectly we are neglecting or we are discarding the social integrity. Therefore, this is very important, that social ecology. Okay, e-learning, it is inevitable, particularly during this period. Most of the students, particularly in India and other parts of the world, they are leaned towards the e-learning system. But that actually discarding indirectly. Oh, okay, this is a debatable issue, that social system, social ecology, there's a different thing. But with my little experience, by 32 years of teaching, I can say, if the students will not come into a classroom, then you won't get the environment. You cannot share your knowledge with your friend. Okay, you can put question in the screen and the presenter can reply, or your friends can reply, but there is no human touch, there is no vibration. I feel, may I be wrong, but we must take care, give attention. That in my earlier lecture in another webinar, I told there that please take care if you go for the online teaching, and your syllabus will be in accordance with your local environment. Don't follow that Western world. There is no end. Fortunately, I attended so many classes. I delivered lectures also. They're very monotonous, you see. So therefore, this part is very important because American one philosopher, he said the social ecology, society and ecology. You know, there was a system of teaching in geography to assess one society, that Human Development Index, HDI. And in that system of assessment, that you just count down how many car you have, how much fuel you are consuming per day, and how much electricity you're consuming. And with that, we can tiring this country is in this level, that country is that level, and your family is that level. Okay, this is a system of categorizing the society as well as the country. But this was not the last. In 2002, a group of social scientists in Brazil and then came to Europe. They started the World Social Forum, and there they introduced the HHI, Human Happiness Index. If I go for e-learning, we get happiness. Okay, we can handle the technology and all gadgets and everything is very simple and easy to access. But gradually we are losing that one part of happiness. So the question has come during this phase, in which direction we will move towards for technological advancement, and we will sell ourselves to the technology, a more comfortability, or for more happiness. And this Tripti Das, she mentioned very nicely, quoting some, articles from different renowned writers, that is Jibon Jiboner Jorno. Jibon Jiboner Jorno. Okay, this is all about my observations regarding the 3 or 4 presenters. And now I'd like to add my deliberations, a few points in relation with this. I feel this is the right time. No need to give another phase for deliberation of lecture, and that is you can consider. If you allow me, then I can. And if you say that no, it is an end, and then we'll go switch over to your lecture.
No, please continue, Maulana.
Because time is, we are running a little late, no? So my observations regarding, I'd like to say in my lecture, what I outlined when I included my name there in your speaker list, that one great philosopher, but is a geographer, American geographer. All you know, those who are belonging to geography discipline, they know, and other people, they know, those who are handling the environmental issues of the world. And that gentleman is Griffith Taylor. Griffith Taylor, he proposed or propounded that neo-determinism, the main focus of the theory is that is the stop and go. Stop for a while, then you decide whether you are right or wrong, then you go for your future programs or achievement. This stop, to me, this corona pandemic period is a stop for a while for the mankind, for the civilization. We are gradually, since our when our civilization started, within a cave, the cave period, after that we cross over that, then come to this stage. And during this phase, so many such type of the stop phases we experienced, on the plague or this Spain flu, all this. These are the, to me, these are the stop. And this is the right time. Now we can assess ourselves whether how much we are civilized, how much we have achieved in our science, in a medical science or in other environmental science. This is the right time. So this is the right time. That's why stop and go. By that, we can decide that, okay, we are well behind in our medical science. It's a small, the virus that affect the entire world. One positive point is there. By this corona, we are into one net, that is our earth. This is not for the Western world, this is not for the Eastern world, this is not for the Southern hemisphere, this is not for the Northern hemisphere. Throughout the earth, we are getting this, problem. And for this, we have to find out some new technology, how we overcome this problem. So the pandemic, this corona, are compelled to, devote ourselves to find out the new technology, how we'll overcome this in medical field, in technological field, in education part. That's why today we have arranged this, webinar. And the presenters like this, Rimaya and this Pia Sinha, they propose this. They propose some new ideas that can be communicated. And from there we can get a new avenue to get rid of from this problem. Now, last part of my deliberation is that the social change. Previously, we know that you are for the community. You know that tribal people society, they are highly recognized and appreciated by the social scientist or anthropologist or any planner, or because they have a strong belief or their faith on their community. They are doing anything for their community, not for their own, for their individual. And this was our culture also. The Indian people is highly appreciated by the Western world because we feel for the community, feel for the mohalla, we feel for the student, we feel for the family. But this pandemic introducing nije bacho, that means just take out yourself from the community, from the family. If you touch anyone, there is the contaminations. So this is the danger part. If it will persist, then our social integration will be spoiled or destroyed, and nobody can repair it after this part. So I am really in dilemma in what direction, whether I will keep myself apart from everybody, or I'll be with my community, or I'll be with my students and my family members as I was. Thank you, everybody, because you are giving me a chance to share my philosophy, my ideas regarding the present phase of this development of pandemic part. And my elder brother, the Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, I referred him as the elder brother. I'm really grateful to you that you allow me and give a chance to share my philosophy in this platform where huge number of participants, they have registered themselves. সকলকে নমস্কার, নমস্কার সকলকে।
Thank you, Maulana. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maulana. অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Maulana.
Thank you for reminding us again that the Indian heritage and its characteristics that have enlightened the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but now we are restricted ourselves in our home and being actually quarantined from ourselves, our endeavor, because we find ourselves flourished within our society. So we have to restrict ourselves. And being a fraternity, I must have to say that there is nothing replacement than the chalk and talk. How much we move to the digital world, it was not like the physical interaction with the students as we all feel in a classroom. As we are running out of time, so without wasting time, I request our principal sir to give vote of thanks and to close the session of today's 2 days webinar. Up to you, sir.
My dear Maloy Mukhopadhyay, Professor Arunodoy Majumdar, other participants, my dear colleagues, Dr. Mohua Sen, Coordinator IQAC, and other members of the IQAC, members of the non-teaching fraternity and students, and Dr. Sushant Kumar Bardhan is here, I am seeing. Professor Kaushik Kumar Dotto is here. He is our member of the governing body, and everybody. I thank every participant on our part, on behalf of the college, on behalf of myself, who have come from abroad and presented their paper and interacted on with a very current topic, impact of COVID-19, and actually we have been benefited much after listening to the illuminating lectures of Professor Arunoday Majumdar, Professor Maloy Mukhopadhyay, and the presenters, particularly Rema, Pia Sinha, Prosenjit Khan, Tripti Das, and they have presented the most important topic from their own corners of the views, and I, as an ordinary being, have been benefited very much. And Molaida, at the time of explaining every lecture in his particular deliberation, have given to us a particular light that what is our duty, what we have to do during this period. And our IQAC cell thought it very rightly that it is the correct time to organize such type of webinar so that we may try to throw some light on this social aspect. I again and again thank you all, my dear participants, my dear teachers, my dear colleagues of non-teaching fraternity, and the speakers, honorable speakers of this session. And I expect that your deliberations, which have been kept in our YouTube method as a record, it will throw light years after years to the in front of the researchers who must find in their ways, in their journeys to make our world beautiful. And tomorrow we will meet again. And with this word, I request Mohua to declare this particular session closed, and we are inviting everybody to join us tomorrow at a particular time as per our schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Koel, for conducting this paper presentation session. And I convey, yes, I convey my gratitude to Malaida. So because when I asked him, and he then and there he agreed to come with us and agreed to join the webinar. So I'm really thankful to you, sir, Malaida, and I express
Thank you, Mohua. Thank you.
I express my sincere gratitude to you, sir. And I also express my gratitude to Principal, sir. And today we have closed this session, and we will meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. And we join the Google Meet link in the 10 50 to 55, and we can start our third session, 26th August, third session from 11 a.m. So please, all of you, I thank again and welcome you in the tomorrow session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Hello.